Have you ever driven by a flag and wondered what it really means? Video by Patrick Solomon. Please like, comment, and share. This simple question can be surprisingly complex, especially when it's the Confederate battle flag. It's a piece of cloth that carries an immense weight of history, emotion, deeply conflicting interpretations. For some, it is a symbol of Southern heritage, a tribute to ancestors who fought with courage, a statement of regional pride and rebellion. For others, it is a painful, immediate reminder of human enslavement, a treasonous war fought to preserve that system, the long, violent history of white supremacy that followed. The debate isn't just academic. It unfolds in our communities, on public buildings, in our digital lives.
What did the Confederacy stand for?
To answer this, we don't need to guess or interpret from a distance. We can look at what its own leaders said at the time. The most direct evidence comes from Alexander Stephens, who served as the Vice President of the Confederate States of America. In a famous speech delivered on March 21, 1861, in Savannah, Georgia, he laid out the philosophical foundation of the new nation. This address, now known as the Cornerstone Speech, is unflinchingly clear about the Confederacy's core principles. It leaves no room for ambiguity or modern reinterpretation of the cause. Stephens declared that the United States government had been founded on the faulty idea that all men were created equal. The Confederacy, he explained, was different. He stated, "Our new government is founded upon exactly the opposite idea. Its foundations are laid, its cornerstone rests, upon the great truth that the Negro is not equal to the white man. That slavery, subordination to the superior race, is his natural and normal condition." These were not the words of a fringe radical. They were the words of the second highest official in the Confederate government, explaining its central, organizing principle to the world. This statement is not an isolated one. The official declarations of secession from several Southern states reinforce this same point. For example, Mississippi's declaration plainly states, "Our position is thoroughly identified with the institution of slavery, the greatest material interest of the world." Texas's declaration decried the federal government's alleged failure to protect the institution of slavery, which it described as a benevolent system mutually beneficial to both the bond and free.
People say heritage, not hate. Are flags and monuments just about honoring soldiers?
This is a very common and heartfelt sentiment for many who display the flag. They see it as a way to honor their ancestors, who may have fought and died during the Civil War. However, the history of when and why these symbols became prominent in public spaces tells a different story. The timing of their proliferation suggests a motive that extends far beyond simple ancestral remembrance. It points directly toward a message of intimidation and resistance to racial equality. If the primary purpose was to honor veterans, we'd expect a surge right after 1865. But that is not what the historical record shows. Instead, the two largest spikes occurred during two very specific periods. The turn of the 20th century, when Jim Crow laws were being enacted to disenfranchise black citizens, and the 1950s and 1960s, at the height of the civil rights movement. The timing is not a coincidence. Many Southern states incorporated the Confederate battle flag into official flags or flew it over capitals in direct opposition to desegregation and voting rights. In this context, the flag was not a symbol of heritage. It was a weapon of political intimidation. The heritage being celebrated in those eras was inextricably linked to preserving white supremacy and defying racial progress.
If we remove statues, won't we forget the past?
This question raises a valid concern about preserving history, but it rests on a misunderstanding of how we learn about the past and the function of a public monument. History is not taught by statues. History is taught in classrooms. History is taught through books. History is taught in documentaries. And most effectively, history is taught in museums. A statue in a public square is not a history lesson. It is an object of veneration. Its purpose is to honor and celebrate. When that figure fought to destroy the nation and enslave people, public honor becomes deeply problematic. Placing these artifacts in a museum is the opposite of erasing history. It is the best way to preserve and teach it accurately. In a museum, a statue can be surrounded by crucial context: the words of enslaved people, the weapons of war, the primary documents. The choice isn't between remembering and erasing. It's between honoring and contextualizing. Moving a monument from honor to education doesn't destroy history. It enriches our understanding, separates remembering from celebrating, and lets us confront painful truths without placing perpetrators on civic pedestals. History is safest in the hands of educators, not on park pedestals.
What if the Confederate flag means something different to me?
Symbols can hold personal significance, and an individual may associate the Confederate flag with family, regional identity, or a rebellious spirit, without any conscious feeling of hate. However, a symbol's meaning is not determined solely by one person's private intent. Once a symbol is displayed in public, its meaning is overwhelmingly shaped by its historical origin and widespread use. The Confederate flag carries a heavy public meaning that cannot be erased by personal feelings. The flag's journey began as the banner of an army fighting to preserve slavery. Its public meaning was forged in that original sin and reinforced time and again. The Ku Klux Klan and other white supremacist groups proudly waved it. Segregationist politicians used it to resist integration. In those contexts, its meaning was not ambiguous. It was a clear symbol of opposition to Black freedom and equality. This history is now embedded in the symbol itself. When you display that flag on your car, on your clothing, or as a profile picture, you are not just making a personal statement. You are broadcasting a symbol into the public sphere, and it will be interpreted by its shared public meaning. For many, particularly Black Americans, seeing that flag is an immediate, visceral reminder of a history of violence, oppression, and terror. Your private intent cannot override the public message of intimidation that the flag carries for so many. This is why public meaning outweighs private intent.
My uncle says the war was about states' rights, not slavery.
This is one of the most persistent myths of the lost cause narrative, and it is easily debunked by asking a simple follow-up question. A state's right to do what? The historical record provides a clear and unequivocal answer. The primary right Southern states sought to protect was the right to own human beings as property and to extend slavery into new territories. Read their own secession documents, and it's plain. South Carolina complained about Northern failure to enforce the Fugitive Slave Act. Georgia listed protecting slavery as the primary reason for secession. They argued the federal government's anti-slavery stance threatened their property and way of life. These were not about tariffs or abstractions. They were explicit arguments for preserving slavery. The Confederate Constitution added clauses to protect slavery forever, forbidding any law impairing the right to own slaves and guaranteeing slaveholders' rights in new territories. The states' rights claim is a smokescreen. The leaders weren't shy. In documents and foundational speeches, they said their nation was formed to defend slavery. To call the war merely about states' rights without naming the right to enslave is to ignore overwhelming evidence for a comforting myth.
So, if I put a Confederate flag as my profile picture or on my car, what am I saying?
You are saying you support the ideas of the Confederacy. You support slavery. You support treason against the United States. You support the enduring legacy of white supremacy. Public displays are declarations. Symbols do work in the world. They carry their history with them, shaping how others see you and what you stand for. Choosing to display this flag is choosing to align yourself with that history. This choice is often eased by a selective telling of American history, where some facts are highlighted and others left out. You may have learned about Helen Keller, but not about the pioneering anti-racist work of W.E.B. Du Bois. You may have heard about the Watts riots, but not about the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. You might know the cherry tree myth, but not that some of Washington's dentures were made from the teeth of enslaved people he owned. You've heard of the New Deal, but not redlining. You can learn or willfully remain ignorant.